I've been a pastor for 30 years, and I come from an evangelical background and a very conservative background. And so I have a
Mm.
lot of people in my sphere of influence and my social media network and stuff who are huge Trump supporters, you know, and so I live in that weird tension. And
Yeah.
I'm not a Democrat. Like I'm if I were anything, I'd probably be independent, and I
Yeah.
vote for the issues, that kind of thing. So I meet with a spiritual director regularly, and one of the things that we have talked about on my particular call is I feel called to the gaps.
Hmm.
I'm a gap dweller, right? Where
Yeah.
I find myself in so many different parts of my life, standing between factions,
Yeah.
um, and really finding, like, I relate to both sides of whatever the topic is,
Yeah.
but I also disagree with both sides on other issues,
Hmm.
and I find myself trying to find ways um, to find that commonality, to find that construct. That's why I created that second video that you talked about. And that's really drawing on, philosophically, it's drawing on
Yeah.
constructive, um,
So you want to tell us a little bit about that? So people understand the framework there, and they can
sure, sure, yeah,
go watch the full thing for the full details. But yeah.
yeah. So actually, the very first video that you mentioned, the Keegan video, I'll just give a little background. So my PhD work was my theoretical framework was around like constructivist epistemology and communicative rationality, that critical
Okay.
social theory and Habermas and that kind of stuff, which that's all nerdy philosophical stuff. But in plain language, it means that we construct our understanding of reality in community and in conversation.
Mhm.
Um, like, I don't believe there is an absolute objective thing that is completely right that exists out there that we go try to find. But I think that we are in relationship with God and the world and each other, and through the relationality and the communication, we co-create the thing that is the best thing for our society.
Yeah.
And that's what communicative rationality is. And so that's that was what was behind, um, well, the Keegan video. I just made that because he's a psychologist and I needed to understand his five orders of consciousness.
Yeah.
But that was one of the frameworks for my dissertation, which is why I made that video. I
Okay.
made that 100% for me to try to understand Keegan.
Yeah.
And then I just decided to share it, and I found
Yeah.
out that a lot of other people found it helpful too, which is really cool. Um, but then this other video that you're mentioning, I actually created that animation for a sermon in 2016. And it was
Mm.
actually leading up to, it was in October of 2016 when we were, actually, it was in August because we were preaching a series on the Old Testament book of Job, which
Okay.
was talking about, suffering and like good and evil and where is God, and all the complexity of suffering. And also knowing that we were coming towards this heated, that was the Trump Clinton election. And so the congregation that I was serving was very divided between red and blue, and also divided theologically, because there were some really heated particular theological topics that the church was really divided around. And so I created this video as a way to help my congregation understand that there is a third way, because I actually don't like the term purple when people talk about that we're purple,
Yeah.
because and the whole gist of that video was that when you have two opposing ideologies, both of those ideologies exist for a good reason. Like people don't just randomly say, hey, I want to be a jerk today. I'm going to wake up and do something that makes everybody else suffer. I really don't think that's the motivation for most people. There might be some people that's,
Yeah,
but like ideological structures exist because everybody wants to survive. Everybody wants, I mean, the natural human instinct is self-protection, right? So like tribal instinct is a natural part of being human.
yeah,
And so we naturally construct things that protect our own,
yeah,
and rightly so, right? Especially in an ancient world where like there's animals out there that are going to eat your babies and you
yeah,
don't want them to, right? So you
yeah.
you create tribal protections. And then um, there's one author that recently talked about how, you know, the tribalism that protected us for most of human history is now the thing that's going to kill us, because our population has gotten to a point, and pluralization and globalization has gotten to a point where now we've got to get past tribalism and understand that we're one people on one planet. But that's a huge shift when you talk about millennia of history of tribalism. So anyway, you get like two opposing ideologies, and they're both valid, and they're both built upon solid logical reasoning. And the video that I made was within a Christian theology. I mean, we're talking like Christians on Christians, not even like a whole global perspective.
Yeah.
That two sides of every topic, are doing good theology, and that becomes the problem. Um, so how? So the idea of compromise being red and blue becoming purple actually doesn't solve anything, because suddenly you're no longer red or blue. You're a new thing that isn't anything that anybody wanted to start with. And so I think ultimately that's not a helpful image.
Yeah.
And so this idea of, I build that whole video on one of the main reasons I became a Lutheran theologian is the idea of paradox, and the reality of the complexity and the mystery of reality is deeper than our puny little rationalist minds can conceive of. Like every big question seems to always come to equal and opposite possibilities, both being true. And
Yeah.
so that in itself leads me to wonder, there's probably some deeper reality that we just can't even conceive of.
Hmm.
So paradox or dialectical tension is where reality exists, I think. And so what I'm trying to say in that video is, if we can learn how to have enough humility to open the gates of our fortress to say, I could be wrong, at least a little,
Hmm.
enough to listen to the other side, and the back and forth listening to have enough wisdom and enough compassion for the other side to begin having a dialogue. It's that dialectic, that uh, communicative, rationality, that in the video I talk about how that in itself creates like this force field that creates a bridge between the two.
Yeah.
That is neither solid nor liquid, that is neither color nor non-color. And it's
Hmm.
in that space that we can actually have a mutual flourishing. So I say all of that in pictures in a short video.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
And
if
what
that's
kind of?
helpful, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. There's so many layers to peel out there, but what kind of reaction did you get to the video? Did you get any kind of response in terms of it helping to accomplish what you're describing? I mean, I really like the idea of the sort of sitting with the tension instead of trying to resolve the tension. That the tension is actually it's to maintain, not to be to resolved, and to sit in that tension. And that tension, I think, what Robert Keegan would say is that tension actually is an opportunity for us to change. It allows us to change, and we want to get rid of it because maybe we don't want to change.
right. that like his third book, Immunity to Change, is
Yeah.
is that resistance or the belief that we can't change,
Yeah.
Uh, but Keegan would say you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah. It's just you got to
So
unpack all the layers. Yeah.
yeah, so your question was, how did people respond to that video?
Yeah. Did you get any kind of response that into the video itself?
Yeah, so different layers of response. I told you I created that video for a particular sermon,
Mm-hmm.
for a particular group of people. And so I showed the video during my sermon as like the predominant bulk of the sermon, and then just talked about it. And the people in the congregation really loved it. It felt, because what it does is it honors both sides,
Yeah.
and because what tends to happen is a preacher will take their own side of a of a debate like this, and kind of use the pulpit as a bully pulpit. And some people, I try not to create an environment where there's winners and losers when you have these kinds of debates. And I feel like the purpose of my video was to honor the fact that people are coming from a valid perspective and calling for a third way. And the third way, of course, I have to express my bias, right? So I'm a disciple of Jesus, and I believe that the way of Jesus is the way of the cross, not the way of domination. Jesus didn't come to win; he actually came to lose,
Yeah.
to show us that it is the way of love and forgiveness that is the only path to life. And when we turn the gospel into a win-lose, zero-sum, or a dominance game, that's not the gospel that Jesus presented. And so, in my perspective,
Yeah.
and
Well, I guess when.
and
Well, do you want me to interject, or you want to finish your thought?
no, go. I was just
Okay.
going to say, people responded well to it, and then online, um, predominantly got good response. Like you're an example of that. You were a person who randomly watched it on YouTube and found it to be helpful.